All right, let's now welcome Professor Christopher Isike of the African Politics and International Relations School at the University of Pretoria to further unpack the latest developments in regards to the Gaza Peace talks, as well as the release of the South African hostages who were detained from the global Shumud Flotilla. So, Prof Isike, it's good to have you with us. A very good afternoon. So let's look at the latest developments in the Flotilla detainees, right? South African detainees are still not en route back home. That is the latest confirmed report. It's taking a little longer. Suspicion is now that Israel might be using this as proxy to send some sort of message to South Africa over its ICJ case, and also pressure to end the conflict in Gaza. What's your take? Why are 5 people taking this long to process, you think?
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Well, I don't think it's correct to assume that it's just South Africa that is targeted. There were over 40 vessels containing about 500 activists from different countries, and some of them will include high-profile figures, and Mandela would be one of those high-profile figures that has actually attracted a lot of attention globally. So it's not just the 5 from South Africa; it's a whole lot of people that they are processing, and they've been deporting almost 200 so far. I think today they've deported about 29 of those. Hopefully they get to the South African cases and deal with them quickly. But there's a sense in which you could also be correct that they could unnecessarily delay the South African abductees, as they are called, just to send a message to South Africa or to Pretoria that they are not pleased with how they've handled the whole matter with Gaza.
Very interesting developments, Professor, because right through the weekend I was talking to analysts as well as our correspondents who all confirmed that, of course, no South Africans were on the list of those detainees that were soon to be sent back to their respective countries. Now, let's move on to the revised Trump peace deal. Hamas is currently out in Cairo for talks while Israel continues its bombardment of Gaza. So what are your expectations from the talks this time around, Prof?
Well, the Trump plan is very ambitious and also operational if you compare with previous ceasefire, agreements or proposals that exist. The good thing is that Hamas seems to be considering it, and for once, we see an American president really calling the shots in terms of what should happen and should not happen. And maybe this is where we can give kudos to Mr. Trump. The only issue I think that Hamas is hung up on, maybe 2 issues, is the fact that, they would want the Palestinian people to be the ones to determine who governs post-war Palestine, and then also for them, I think the question of a 2-state solution to the Middle East crisis, which this 20-point plan did not expressly say, are the 2 key issues that they would want to really discuss and negotiate. And it appears that Mr. Trump himself has said that he's open to a few changes here and there. It all depends on, of course, the good faith of Israel to implement this agreement, but I doubt that will be the case because they have not been very trustworthy good faith negotiators or interlocutors in this case.
Well, Netanyahu, Professor, has repeatedly stated that he will not stop until the group is completely obliterated. That is in relation to Hamas. But, Prof, Hamas is not the representatives of the Palestinian people. As we heard Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas state at the recently held UNGA. And with such sentiments, then, do you think he will actually comply? That is Netanyahu, because the latest reports are that he's actually facing uncertainty in his political future, even among his allies, because of his stance on the war in Gaza.
Well, that's the problem. I personally, my opinion is I don't think he would comply, except Mr. Trump really exerts pressure and reiterates who's the boss. Well, between the two of them, because Mr. Netanyahu has actually acted like an American president in the last 2 years. So here, for once, we are seeing an American president who's able to look him in the eye and tell him the time to stop is now, because there's no way they can carry on what they've done without American support anyway. So if America really puts the pressure on, I guess it will have no choice but to stop. But I mean, if you look at the press conference they had on Friday after the agreements were reached, they already talking from two different points. While Trump was talking about eventual, disarmament and withdrawal of Israel from Gaza. Mr. Netanyahu, in that same press conference in front of Trump, said that Israel will maintain control for the foreseeable future. Now, those are the kind of discrepancies that Hamas will be interested in ironing out, so that there's a clear timeline on when Israel gets to withdraw, if at all they do withdraw, and if they come under serious American pressure to do as outlined in the 20-point peace agreement.
And we do understand, Professor, that at this stage, even though Hamas has agreed to parts of this deal, they've not unilaterally or unconditionally agreed to the deal. So what do you make of the fact that they're still fighting and bombardment that actually continues while they are still actually in Cairo to hold these talks? I mean, does this mean that the talks are actually starting off under good faith?
No, they're not starting under good faith. Well, remember, the bombing we're talking about here, the fighting is one-sided. It's by Israel and not necessarily Hamas. And when Mr. Netanyahu says he wants to obliterate Hamas, it raises the question of why he has not been able to do so in 2 years with everything that they have done. So we really don't know what he's looking for, except to maintain and keep himself in power. And prevent the two-state solution by all means, which I think he's going to eventually come to terms with. This bad faith is on the part of Israel, because even as they were announcing that peace agreement, of course, there was reduced bombardment on Saturday morning in Gaza, but there was still bombardment, and we've seen an increase in those in the last couple of days, especially over the weekend. So with that kind of behavior, you can tell that Mr. Netanyahu is not acting in good faith at all. It will really take a lot for the Americans to really cut him to size and make him to sign that deal and ensure that it's enforced.
And there's quite a lot outstanding pertaining to the deal, Professor. I'm looking here, of course, that there's still sticking points that they need, both sides still need to resolve. The Hamas disarmament. Netanyahu has reportedly stated he won't stop a future governance of Gaza. The plan states Gaza that would be governed by a temporary transitional body. Israeli withdrawal also, of course, halting its military activation and occupation of Gaza City. We do at least understand that this was actually halted after that announcement was actually delivered over the weekend, that Hamas had in fact at that time accepted the deal. But we're not near the finish line just at this stage yet, Prof.
No, we're not. Like you said, even while the announcement was on, the bombardment was taking place. Israel had announced that it was going to go into defense mode, not offensive anymore. But we've seen a bit of offensive attacks in the last 2 days or so since that announcement. So if there is an understanding that when we talk about people that are dying on both sides as humans, and that both humans deserve the recognition and regard and dignity, then we'll begin to really solve the problem. The whole idea that somehow the security of Israel is paramount to those of the security of Palestinians, is what is at the heart of this recklessness that we see from Mr. Netanyahu and his government.
And then, Prof, I mean, apparently Netanyahu was even surprised by this latest deal from Trump, as Trump allegedly didn't consult with him. And we know he is strongly pursuing that Nobel Peace Prize in his efforts with the current conflict in Gaza.
Yes, that is a big motivation for Mr. Trump. And yes, you are correct. Mr. Netanyahu was surprised that he had expected a coordination with Mr. Trump on the Hamas response. Because in his view, it was not a complete acceptance of the deal. But Mr. Trump did not consult with him, was quick to endorse the Hamas position and saw that as good enough for him, for his purpose at least. And I think Mr. Trump is right, because that will help to move it forward, because otherwise waiting for Hamas, I mean, Hamas was not part of the negotiation per se, and deciding on their behalf and then giving them 72 hours to accept a plan, or the plan, or else everything all hell will be let loose on them, is a bit unfair. So it raises the question of whether you even see Hamas as legitimate representatives of the people of Palestine. And if you don't, why are you insisting on their obliteration before you even withdraw, if at all you recognize that they are not supposed to be seen as acceptable interlocutors? So these are the contradictions that enable the delay tactics to just ensure that Mr. Netanyahu gets his way.
Then raising the question, could this be the final straw for Netanyahu? Well, we'll have to see on those developments. Prof, as always, thank you so much for your meaningful contributions here. That is Professor Christopher Isike joining us to unpack the current developments in the Gaza-Trump peace deal, as well as those Flotilla detainees. Well, Israel says South African citizens that enter the country legally will be deported by tomorrow now.